I'm Nancy Maron. I am president of the Board of Trustees of the Yonkers Public Library and president of the Foundation for the Yonkers Public Library. And we are thrilled to have with us tonight the author Julia Alvarez and several of our wonderful library directors and librarians and other friends of the library to celebrate what normally would have been our annual gala. I will mention at the top of this call that you might find this is a little bit different from other events you've been to. Our special guest is very much live with us. She is calling in from her home in Vermont, but about 3 minutes ago, a major storm hit her area of Vermont and her power went out. So we will have her voice with us all evening, but we are not entirely sure that we'll have a live video feed for you as originally planned. But stick with us, I promise we'll make this amusing. So I will start, we'll have a few speakers and then we'll get to the meat of our program. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I don't think it's anyone's preference to be sitting alone in our own spaces. I think our thought was that at this time, we would all be dressed up. We would probably be having some nice appetizers, maybe raising a glass of something festive, surrounded by all of our close friends. We'd probably be on the top floor of the Riverfront Library, as we've done before. We might have a beautiful view of a sunset out across the Hudson, as we often do. I'm gonna guess we would have had some pretty great live music, and the ambiance would just be perfect. So if you can, humor us and imagine that that's where we all are right now. And then, you know, we hoped that that was what was going to happen. And then, of course, the world changed. Lots of things had to change as a result. And I am certainly not going to be the one to complain. Having to adjust the details of a fundraising party is certainly in the category of first world problem. So we will not be complaining about that. We found a great way to make something happen in its place with our same wonderful author. And it would be, if nothing else, in poor taste to be complaining about that, particularly in an age where people are struggling in a lot of more serious ways every day, whether it's to finish school, to get to their jobs, or to live and even to breathe. But tonight we are going to enjoy ourselves. We are going to take a moment to celebrate something very special about our city and our community, and I am delighted that you could join us for this today. Our library system does great things on a regular basis. If you know the Yonkers Public Library system, then you know that we have celebrated with you when things happen like the launch of Tech Central or the renovation at the Will Branch, having things like free passes to museums, being able to borrow toys or a telescope, being able to have the teens come, having wonderful art programs through the art gallery. But when the shutdown began in mid-March, I have to say, I actually got to see the real deal, the deal behind the scenes. I got to spend some time, some real time, not just at board meetings, but hunkered down with library leadership and staff. And if it was possible for me to be more impressed than I already was with the folks who run this organization, I will tell you that I was, and I am. The shutdown was announced maybe on a Thursday or Friday, and by Monday, there were teams actively reformulating to figure out what was going to happen next. And they weren't just saying, how do we do what we always used to do? They were very actively figuring out, what does the next generation library look like? What does a library look like when you can't get into your buildings? The amount of partnership and support and cooperation, both for each other and for the patrons we serve, was really, really a beautiful thing to see. I'd like to especially call attention to our very outstanding deputy director, who I'm going to embarrass by doing this. But she was our acting director when this all started. So that's Susan Thaler, who's on the call with us tonight. And she has been an absolute rock for the Yonkers Public Library for a very long time, providing wise and calm guidance to help both the staff and the board actually manage under the most challenging circumstances possible. So we are very, very indebted to you, Susan, for your great leadership. And I'm going to say, if this were a live event, we'd have to take a long pause for all of the applause and possibly an ovation. But here we are. Who knows who's out there, Susan? We don't know that right now. So we will have to hold that thought until we can do this together live. And I'll say the same thing for our former director, Ed Falcone. We had hoped to really celebrate him tonight. And I promise you, Ed, we will get a chance to do that when we are all together again. You had a wonderful, wonderful tenure at the library, and we are all grateful for that. But tonight, I also get to introduce a new member of this cast of characters. If you have not already met him, Jesse Montero is the brand new library director who stepped into this role literally moments after the shutdown began, working remotely from his home in Brooklyn, where he formerly led the central library there. In the very short time that he has been with us, Jesse has already demonstrated some actually Yonkers-worthy heroics, if I must say. So library directorship in the time of coronavirus is not for the faint of heart. He started with the shutdown during budget hearing season, and while moving his family, including 2 young children, to Yonkers this weekend. So we can't wait to see, with that level of energy and talent and openness and just plain decency, these things bode very, very well for your tenure at the library, Jesse. And we are very excited to have you with us and are looking forward to seeing your contribution, hopefully for years to come. So with that, I'll actually ask to flip the slide to the next one. And the one after that, if you don't mind, Carlos. Wonderful. And then I think we can stop sharing. So Jesse will share some words with us, and then Susan will take over from there.
Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, Nancy, for those wonderful words. Those are truly, truly humbling words. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Book Party, a virtual fundraiser with Julia Alvarez. And for those of you who haven't met me yet, Nancy's already introduced me, but I'm Jesse Montero. I'm the brand new director of Yonkers Public Library. And like Nancy said, I wish we could all be together in the Yonkers room on the 4th floor of the Riverfront Library, enjoying a sunset coming over the Palisades and the Hudson River. And I wish we could also be joined in person with Julia Alvarez, the legendary award-winning author. This afternoon, Ms. Alvarez gave a wonderful and inspiring live stream talk to Yonkers Public Schools. And based on that, I can tell you, you are in for a real treat. And, you know, her humanity and brilliance really just radiated over Zoom. And I know it's going to radiate over the phone as well. But it would have been really great to see her in person. And I hope she can visit Yonkers very soon. But still, I'm glad you're all here with us tonight. And it means so much for the people to turn out to support YPL, because this really is a pivotal moment for the library, and libraries nationwide right now. So as Nancy mentioned, I'm new to Yonkers, I'm new to YPL. I began as the director in mid-March, right after our buildings closed to the public. And I had the privilege to see an organization rise to a historic challenge through adaptation and innovation and just an unwavering commitment to serving the community. Almost immediately after closing, they set up a Zoom account and began offering virtual programs, something they'd never done before. They began offering research and reference services over the phone, and internet and email. They began stocking up on ebooks for the collection, just doing everything they can to be present, to be available, to be connected with people in a time of great need. And even though they couldn't use our buildings, we did everything from making our MakerBots available for printing PPE, to using our parking lot yesterday to distribute over 2,500 boxes of food, basically anything to serve the community in any ways we could, even when our precious buildings could not be available. But fortunately at this moment, the staff are returning to the buildings in order to prepare the buildings and the collections for what the post-COVID-19 library looks like. And it's going to be socially distanced for a while with our reading tables and computers. So it's easier to maintain and easier to clean, making sure our library books are safe to use. And next week, we're really thrilled to begin contact-free pickup of library books and other materials at our libraries. And if our progress and recovery continues unabated, we hope to be able to open our doors next month, albeit in a phased and limited capacity. And I just want to say throughout this process, I've been so impressed with YPL staff, but also the community around us, the patrons, the friends, the partner organizations, the foundation members. I feel so fortunate to have such an enthusiastic foundation supporting the library's efforts through fundraising and advocacy. So it's no secret that that the economic impacts of the coronavirus leave everyone and everything vulnerable, including and maybe especially libraries. And this could have been a very scary budget year, but having the support of the foundation was crucial in helping to vocalize the need and importance of libraries, even when our buildings had to be closed. And I can't tell you how impressed I was at how many people were mobilized to call in for sustained library funding during the most recent budget cycle, and really coming through for us. And just knowing, you know, in a community like Yonkers, everyone from the mayor to the city council to the patrons just could see and value the library service. So that was such an encouraging thing for a new director to see. But the fundraising is an important aspect of this too. So thank you to the foundation and everyone in attendance here tonight. I want to let you know that proceeds from this event are going to go to a pretty traditional library service that has sadly become more relevant in recent months. Our Books by Mail program serves about 60 homebound patrons. Many of these patrons have compromised health and mobility and have suffered even greater social isolation since the pandemic began. And as we gear up to relaunch this program, we're rebranding it as Library by Mail and have plans to really promote it aggressively through social media, through our partners at the Office for the Aging, and in naturally occurring retirement communities. So funds raised through tonight's book sales will help us build that capacity to meet new demand and serve more of our vulnerable community members, giving them the opportunity to receive a vital library service without putting them in harm's way. So thank you again for supporting this great organization during a critical and transformative time for libraries, for Yonkers, for our nation, for our world. So now I'm pleased to turn things over to our Deputy Director, Susan Thaler, who Nancy has said has been just a great partner for me, a great source of guidance, and just a great library leader. So I am happy to turn it over to her to introduce our special guest of honor.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It's such an honor to be here and such a pleasure. And thank you for your kind words. And thank you, Nancy. I am with you. I have been so impressed with our library, our staff, and it has been just a great pleasure working with Jesse. And I'm looking forward to what comes next. I'm going to give a very brief introduction to our honored guest. And it is my honor to do so. This will be really just skimming the surface of all of her accomplishments, because she's a spectacular human being. And, but I want to give you a little bit of background. Julia Alvarez was born in New York City. Her parents returned to the Dominican Republic, where they were born, when she was just a few months old. 10 years later, the family was forced to flee back to the US as a result of Julia's father's efforts to depose the dictator, Rafael Trujillo. Ms. Alvarez is a prolific writer who first came to prominence with her debut novel, How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, which was released in 1991. She's written celebrated fiction, including the novels In the Time of the Butterflies, Yo, In the Name of Salome, Saving the World, and her brand new one, Afterlife, which I read recently, and it is phenomenal. You're gonna love this book. Buy the book because it's great. She's also a prolific poet and has written works of nonfiction and a number of books for young readers, including the Tia Lola stories. Her fiction has common and universal threads woven throughout, including the complicated love between and amongst sisters and the hope and heartache of the immigrant experience. She earned her undergraduate degree from Middlebury College in 1971 and a master's degree in creative writing from Syracuse University in 1975. She taught at various schools, including Phillips Andover, the University of Vermont, and the University of Illinois. She became a professor of English at Middlebury College in 1988. And like Antonia, the protagonist of Afterlife, she retired a few years ago from full-time teaching. In 1989, she married Bill Eichner, an eye surgeon whose humanitarian medical missions took him to many impoverished nations around the world. Together, they started Finca Alta Gracia, an organic coffee farm using sustainable methods in the Dominican highlands. Profits from the farm went to the Alta Gracia Foundation, which promoted literacy programs for the local population. The farm is now being turned over to the Mariposa DR Foundation. an organization that works to create sustainable solutions to end generational poverty by educating and empowering girls. Ms. Alvarez has won numerous prestigious awards, including the Pura Beltré and Americas Awards for her books for young readers, the Hispanic Heritage Award, and the F. Scott Fitzgerald Award. In 2013, she received the National Medal of Arts from President Obama. This evening, we're lucky to have three of our Yonkers Public Library librarians, Aurora Cruz, Lee Baird, and Mary Robison, here to have a conversation with Julia. It is our very great honor to welcome Julia Alvarez.
Thank you so much. I hope you all can hear me. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am on a little phone in a dark room, so I need all the help I can get. And I am so sorry that this is Vermont. There's storms and the power goes out, and we were all talking about it, and so I thought when we talked about it that it would not happen. And boy, it happened. So I'm only sorry that I can't have the visuals, but I am even more impressed by these introductions and what I'm learning about these wonderful people at the Yonkers Public Library and at the foundation and the work they're doing. I think one of the things that we've all realized with this pandemic is who are our essential workers, who are the people that have been doing for years invisible work, seemingly invisible, keeping us together as communities, as a culture, sustaining our hearts and souls and our minds. And we realize with this pandemic who they are, these people that have been taking care of all of us. And the way I feel about libraries, independent bookstores, librarians, teachers is it's our turn to take care of them. So I'm I'm the one who's honored to be here to talk to you a little bit tonight and to have this opportunity to thank libraries and librarians, because without them and my encounter with them when we first came to this country, I would not have become the writer I am today. So thank you for that. During the day, I spoke with the Yonkers Public School students, and I focused on my children's picture book, Already a Butterfly, a meditation story that'll be coming out next week with beautiful illustrations by Raul Colon. And it's based on my own meditation practice, now going on over 10 years, and also my work volunteering at the Mariposa DR Foundation, an organization in the DR that educates and empowers young street girls. And it was started by an American woman who was inspired by the butterflies of my novel, In the Time of the Butterflies, and decided that the way to go was to empower the new butterflies. And so during one of my visits, since I'm on the board there and I go down and volunteer from time to time, I suggested to Tricia that along with all the other training the girls were getting, that they should have mindfulness training and meditation practice to help them stay focused and disciplined. And so she started that practice, and that's the inspiration for this Already a Butterfly, the story that in a way introduces young children to what does it mean, this crazy word, meditate. But tonight I want to focus on Afterlife, and it's a novel about Antonia, a Dominican American living in Vermont, and she's recently retired from a long career teaching literature at a local college. Antonia lives, breathes by the books that she's taught and loved. And actually, you know, when you are making up a character, you consider, you know, what you'll give her as a profession. I could easily have made her a librarian instead. So anyhow, just a brief capsule of the novel and what it's about. Antonia loses, on the eve of her retirement, she loses her husband, Sam, suddenly. And so the life that seems so secure and full of certainties is suddenly upended. She tries to keep herself together through careful self-management and relying on those books she has taught, written, loved. But sometimes she finds that life requires more of her than just words. She's pulled back into the fray by the appearance of an undocumented Mexican pregnant girl in her garage and the disappearance of her sister, a wild, big-hearted personality who might be bipolar. A lot happens. And I guess my question and quandary as I wrote about Antonia was, how do we survive the worst that can happen to us without closing down or losing hope in ourselves or each other? In fact, I joke about it, and I call it a contemporary, the novel, a contemporary book of Job with a sense of humor. Because how could it not have humor when instead of an old venerable patriarch, we've got a Latina woman with 3 lively, sassy sisters, no holds barred, or as we say in Dominican Spanish, sin pelos en la lengua. They just right out there. So I thought I'd give you a little taste of the novel by reading a short passage. It occurs towards the end of the novel. Antonia is driving Mario, an undocumented Mexican worker in the farm next door who has enlisted Antonia's help, driving him and his girlfriend, Estela, and her little baby, Mari, to Boston, where they're going to catch a plane and go home to Chiapas. They've had it in cold Vermont and in unfriendly immigrant hunting era. Anyhow, this little passage, you'll see that what I mean about Antonia loving words by the reaction she has to a song Estela is singing to little Mari, her baby. And by the way, this song is one that I heard, a clapping song sung by little girls in the campo in the DR. So today, Mario is riding beside her, beside Antonia, all cleaned up in an iron shirt and jeans. He has been talking nonstop, excited, full of plans, seemingly unaware of the other passenger in the back seat, whom periodically, when Antonia can get a word in edgewise, she tries to loop into the conversation. ¿Cómo estás? Antonia glances in the rearview mirror at Estela and her baby playing a clapping game. Estela bringing the tiny hands together while chanting, a la una yo nací, a las dos me bautizaron, a las tres supe de amores y a las cuatro me casaron. At 1, I was born. At 2, baptized. At 3, I fell in love. At 4, I married. At 5, I had a child. At 6, my child died. And so on, all the way to midnight, when the speaker succumbs to cancer and her life is done. It's a terrible song, circumscribing the little girl's life even before she has gotten started. Por favor, Antonia protests. Let's sing Mari some other song. Even in Spanish, with someone else's kid, Antonia wants the words to be right. We live in what we imagine. They settle on Cielito Lindo, Estela rocking her baby to the rhythm, laughing each time Marianela makes a gurgling sound. She already knows how to sing, the new mother exclaims, showering her little genius with kisses. It's comforting to witness the backseat tableau of Madonna and child. Estela's maternal feelings have more than kicked in. And guys, the electricity just came back. So I don't know if you all want me to try to zoom in.
Yeah, you know, I think here's what I'm going to suggest. take a minute and see if you can get back on the video feed. And while you do that, Carlos, can you put up the slide about introducing the librarians, and maybe we'll spend a minute having them on the screen. We'll give you a little break.
Sure, give me 1 second.
I think the reading did it.
Perfect. So see what you can do. We'll be here.
While we're here, while we're waiting for her, I will introduce the three wonderful librarians who are joining us tonight to speak with Ms. Alvarez. We have Aurora Cruz, who is our new branch manager at the Grinton I Will Library on Central Avenue. She started there, when did you start, Aurora? In January?
January 13th.
January 13th at the Will Library. Before that, she was the head of reference and adult services at the Riverfront Library for a long time.
19 years.
How many?
19.
19 years, there you go. Next, we have Z Baird, who is the branch manager at our Crestwood branch, at our Crestwood Library, a little tiny library in the northeast corner of the city that it has just an incredibly enthusiastic community there, and they're tremendous library supporters. And Z, how long have you been at Crestwood?
4 years, I think.
Is that all?
Yeah.
He has just really done an amazing and tremendous job of making this library even more of a community center and a real hub of that community, and has just brought incredible new life to that little tiny.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe this.
Are you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm here.
Okay, well,
Oh my
I
goodness.
can hear you on the
Oh
phone.
I better put my outfit back on and turn off my flashlight. Okay. I'm going to turn off
hear
the
you on the
phone.
phone.
That's okay. Okay, I'll turn off the
Okay, well, in the meantime, I will also introduce Mary Robison, who is the new head of reference and adult services at the Riverfront Library. She's taking over the position that Aurora vacated. We are thrilled to have her in that position. She's done a phenomenal job. She started also in January, correct?
February, actually.
February. February she started, and right after that we had to close down, but she has done an amazing job, not just running her own staff, but also really coordinating all of our virtual programming since we shut down in March. And that has been a big job, and she has done a fantastic job with that. So thank you all for joining us, and I'm not sure where we stand at the moment. Carlos, do we have an idea?
We're good to go. We could go with the branch administrators one.
Is Julia with us?
Yeah, Julia's with us.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, there you are. Yay!
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Welcome back.
I did a
We're so
quick,
happy to see you.
Putting on my gala jacket.
Yay! All right. Well, welcome back.
Oh, what life! I mean, that's something we all have had experience in the last 2 months, right?
That's right. That's right.
Anything can happen.
That's exactly right. And we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go. So
Yeah.
tonight is a good example.
For your forbearance and keeping a cool head. Thank you.
It's wonderful. I'm so happy we're able to see you. And
Oh, I know.
you can see all of the people here who came to see you as well. So
Thank you so much. Yep.
okay. So I guess we will start, Aurora, we will start with you if you'd like to go ahead and speak.
Can we hear
Give me
her?
one
Good
second.
evening,
There you go.
everybody. Hola,
Hi,
hola.
Aurora.
How are you?
Much better now.
Okay, good. In Afterlife, which was an amazing book, Antonia finds great comfort and strength from literature. What can literature, and especially fiction, provide us during these present times?
Oh, that is, I mean, that is a great question, and I think one of the central questions in the book, because I didn't know there was a pandemic coming, but in some ways the book speaks to this moment and moments where the world falls apart for us, whether it's personally, individually, or in a larger global way that we're witnessing. And I think for me, what writing and what books and literature provide me with is a sense of being accompanied in the experience, to feel that 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 I'm not alone in it, that these other, whether imaginary or if it's a memoir, these other people have been through experiences. And it's not that books, the best books don't give us answers, they don't preach to us, but that they help us understand and make meaning of the experience. And I find that I need to be reading. I need to be reading, especially poetry these days. I need to be nurturing my soul, because that's going to be what carries us through. So I think Antonia's my character, of course, inherited her author's DNA, literary DNA, and she too lives by these texts. However, sometimes, as she discovers, the words are not enough. The texts are not enough. And she needs to join the life out there and confront a pregnant, undocumented girl about to give birth in her garage, a sister who's missing. So, but nevertheless, I think words and literature help her in those moments.
Is there any author that you frequent or go back to when you need that kind of strength or comfort? Is there like one particular author that you go back to?
Oh, Aurora, there's so many, but if I could choose a genre, I think that the ones, for me, the rock bottom would be poetry. And I find that the poetry really nurtures some essential part of me. Maybe I tell myself, when I analyze things, that maybe it's because I started in Spanish as my first language, and something about language when it's cadence and musical reminds me of my mother tongue, because I feel like I'm English dominant, but I also feel like I'm speaking my Spanish and English in some ways. So what poets do I read? Oh, every January, I read T.S. Eliot's The Four Quartets. It's just a ritual for me to read that. It's a long book-length poem. I love the poetry of Rilke. I love the haiku writers like Basho, Busan, Isa. I love Pablo Neruda, of course. So many poets that I continually go to, and also new ones that I'm discovering. A wonderful young Dominican who writes her novels and poetry, Elizabeth Acevedo, The Poet X, wonderful novel. And I think all the writers that I love are writers that write with their ear and attention to the cadence of language, not just plot and character.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aurora.
All right, I'm up next. So I wanted to speak about your beautiful picture book, Already a Butterfly, a meditation story, the collaboration with Raul Colon. I just love the language and the way the illustrations work together. Could you speak a little bit about how the illustrations add to the story and the experience of working with Raul?
Well, you have your little wish list, and it's actually, people think, oh, I teamed up with him and we went to a publisher. The way it works usually, unless you're the illustrator and writer, both, is Raul, because he writes his own books too and illustrates them. The way it works is that the publisher has a roster of people that they would like to see you team up with. And when they mentioned Raul Colon, I just read his picture book, Imagine, and I thought this was wonderful. I was so excited. He was so busy, had won so many prizes, that we actually had to wait about 1.5 years, 2 years before he could get to the book. And I'm thrilled that we waited. I just feel like he got it. When I did, one thing I did say to my editor, Christy Otiviano, at Macmillan, I said, I just really want the characters to reflect, it was inspired by the mariposas, the skin color, the world of the Dominicans that I had in my mind, the young girls. And I also felt like so much of meditation and mindfulness has been kind of like, seems to have been sort of focused on the white population and demographics. And I wanted meditators to look different too and diverse. So I sent him some pictures of the mariposas, and oh boy, he created a beautiful mari. And he's just, to me, the book itself, without even reading the text, is a kind of, it puts me in a trance. It puts my reader, I think, in the place I want her and him to go. So it was a beautiful collaboration. And I just, very happy that it worked.
It is stunning. I also was hoping that you could share with us a little bit about your own meditation practice and why you believe it's important for children to start mindfulness and self-care practices at a very young age.
Well, actually, Mariposa Foundation starts girls at 8 to 18, but they have a feeder school, Tres Mariposas Montessori. And the director of that, another American woman, Sarah Ross, it starts the kids on meditation now. She really, because I think what I was finding with the Mariposas is that they were, these are girls that came, and some of them had never worn shoes. They came from extreme poverty. And suddenly they were learning things, learning English. They were winning scholarships. One won a scholarship to an American college. They were just experiencing so much. And it's so easy to get, blown away by it, especially if you don't come from a tradition in your family where you were sort of encouraged or got sort of to train yourself to stay disciplined and not lose your way. And so I thought that, without that central skill of how to manage yourself and all the input that comes in, and kids now are getting so much on the internet and so much exposure to so many things, a way to learn to manage your thoughts and your feelings. And it isn't that you tamp them down or erase them, but how to use them in ways that energize and sustain you. So it's a skill set that is so important. It's not academic. It is total. You're integrating it all through this practice. And I just think, look at what has been happening in the last few months and is continuing to be a world that we all need to not, lose our way, to stay connected with the things that are important. So I feel like that practice has helped me, now going on 10 years on this practice. And I see it with the mariposas. And I see it with the kids that I have seen have been exposed to meditation, that it's a life skill. It's a life skill.
Most definitely. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I'm interested in your take on the Dominican community and the Dominican immigrant experience as it is now as compared to when your family came back to New York.
Well, we came in 1960, and we came because we were lucky that we managed to get out with help from someone actually from the CIA that was there trying to encourage the underground group. And when my papi's nucleus got broken and everybody started to get arrested, Manuel Chavez, he was a Mexican American who was in the CIA working there, got papi and his family out. So we came in 1960. You know, now you think of Nueva York as like another Dominican city, but we were really the only ones. And we, you know, had left an extended family. It was a dictatorship, it was bloody, but as a child, what I experienced was a wonderful familia, an extended family around me, very loving. We landed in Nueva York, and there was, the civil rights movement was just getting started. We were seeing demonstrations on the streets, on the television, people getting hosed down. And Papi had said that we were going to the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I thought, wait a minute, this is like the dictatorship. Only certain people here get to be that. And then we experienced what many immigrants experience, of that initial unwelcome, kids in schools making fun of our accents, people complaining in our building that our food was smelly, you know, our voices were too loud, you know, the things that can happen. And so to feel that unwelcome was very painful. I feel like now, you know, there's a nucleus, there's a Dominican community in Nueva York, and it's sort of, it's the way I was talking about books and feeling accompanied. You have your people, you have a community, you have that kind of support and encouragement. And then you have other immigrants like myself, whom you see are putting who we are into the larger culture. And there's more inclusiveness than there was when we arrived. But as we know, from what we've all been experiencing in the last few months, in the last few weeks, that inclusiveness is still a work in progress. And all the more important for those of us that have had the luck and the opportunity to remember that, as Toni Morrison said, the function of freedom is to free someone else. So that's an important part of being an immigrant, because we live it, we know it. We've experienced what it is to be othered. And so we feel compassion for that.
Thank you.
Hi. Mary, hi, how are you? And thank you
I'm
for this.
so happy.
I'm so happy to see you. If you have a minute, we have one question from our audience. That's okay.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we got all thrown off, so feel free.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I would say is I would extend it. We can't make people go live here, but if folks who are listening have a question and you type it into the chat, I can try to pick out a few at least, and we'll share that for a minute. And then before we end, I don't want to forget to mention that at the end, you'll see a slide where I'm going to show you how you can, for yourselves, get copies of all of the new books. I'll show you them on the screen. It'll look better. But so here's the first question from Daisy. The question is, I understand now why Afterlife takes place in Vermont. I am curious as to what prompted you to move to Vermont from New York.
Trabajo. I got a job here, and I am, you know, I call myself for many years a migrant poet. I was writing, well, you know, as a teenager, I started writing, and I wanted to be a writer. And after I graduated from college, I couldn't find a job. And I had to make my way and earn my living. And so I would go anywhere. I think in 10 years, I had 15 different addresses. I lived in Kentucky, I lived in North Carolina, I lived in Baltimore, I lived in Visalia, California. I lived wherever I could get a job, and they were called Poetry in the Schools. I would go there and teach. And finally, I got offered, you know, a job that would continue past a semester at Middlebury College, my old alma mater. So that's why I moved to Vermont. And my family couldn't believe it. Pero ese frío, how are you going to survive that cold? But I found that there are lots of warm-hearted people here. And so I found a home here. And I'm more and more, I'm finding, as you will learn from reading the novel, a community of the newest of immigrants, undocumented Mexican workers. It's a little known fact, but most of the milking now in all the dairy farms, farmers cannot afford to hire American workers that are willing to do the kind of 24/7 job that farming requires. And so they come here from Chiapas, they come here across Mexico, across the United States. And because Vermont isn't very diverse and doesn't have a whole lot of Spanish services, guess who they call in my small community? Oh, Bill Eichner's wife. She knows how to speak some Spanish. Why don't we call her? So I've been called to attend at births in the hospital and to come over and explain how a milking machine works and any number of things that I never thought I'd be doing in Vermont when I moved here 3 years ago. Wow.
Wow, I'm playing with the controls here so I can ask you the next question, but that's pretty remarkable.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not imagine you'd be pressed into service for all those things at this point.
Why do you think my character has to learn that sometimes the unexpected is going to happen, and when people need you can't say, you know, I'm grieving or I'm busy. Who else are they going to call when it's just you, you know, who can do the translating?
So we have a question actually from our superintendent of schools who's joining us tonight. He was with us earlier today, and if you don't mind, I'll just read his question.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Quesada, for getting a double dose.
He says, Julia, it was such an honor meeting you this afternoon with our students. It would be nice if you could share with this group the breathe in, breathe out challenge you shared with us this afternoon, an exercise we should do daily to honor George Floyd and to honor equity and diversity.
Well, you know, when I was putting together the presentation, I was wondering what to call it because the focus was already a butterfly, and meditation is all about breathing, because that's the one thing that breathing is happening. You take a breath right now and right now and right now. It's not something you can plan or something you can reminisce about. To stay alive, you have to breathe. So it is the essential part of whatever human being, no matter where they are, gender, race, ethnicity. So breathing is so important. So I thought, oh my gosh, breathing and I can't breathe is such a theme right now that's why I called it breath. No, called it breathe, the presentation earlier today. And at the end of it, I talked about the people that can't breathe in a metaphorical level, that in a metaphorical and very real level with George Floyd, people that are repressed and not able to have this essential need that we all have. And so at the end of the presentation, I asked students if they would like to take a meditation pledge, which means that for every day, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which was the time frame in which George Floyd could not breathe because of the neck hold that killed him, if the students would just time themselves, and as a way of honoring him and as a way of committing to that essential idea that everybody has a right to breathe, if they would meditate breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. And it'll be a good practice and a centering practice as we go through the many challenges that lie ahead for us as a national and global community. So it's a pledge. If you can make it, it would be wonderful.
There's one last question I'd like to know if you'd answer, which is from Amaya Taveras, who wants to know about your own writing practice. And in this time of pandemic, if you're writing, and what inspires you, what gets you motivated in this time? I'm guessing your practice of meditation may be part of it, but I wonder if you have any guidance for all of the writers that have joined us tonight and are trying to keep motivated.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. You know, I was supposed to be on a book tour for 3 weeks across the United States with Afterlife. And of course, it got canceled. It was in April, the book came out, everything closed down. But my publisher, Algonquin Books, said, well, we can do it digitally. And I am a total digital dinosaur, but I have had to learn this technology in a hurry. So I have been doing, instead of 3 weeks, now going on 3 months of a lot of events. It's not as satisfying as actually meeting readers, but I've been so busy and distracted with that it has been hard to focus. And so many requests come in. We just came out with an anthology. Actually, it just was published yesterday online. It's coming out in print, of called Together in a Sudden Strangeness, America's Poets Respond to the Pandemic. And I was contacted and asked if I would contribute a poem. So I wrote a poem. I've been asked to do different things like this, writing things. And I think of it as my contribution. Since I'm now, in quarantine, I have no other ways to contribute and help. And so I've been trying to step up to the plate with these things. But I do every morning, as I said, read my poetry. And I go down and I put in, or try to, a writing day, which begins from when I wake up to about 3 or so in the afternoon. And I do start the writing, the writing day with a meditation every morning. And then at the end of the day, when I close down, I meditate again. And I find it's very resourceful, sustaining thing. I also write every day. This is very good. A journal. And I keep thinking, we're living in a deeply mythic moment. And I heard this one meditation teacher say, don't let this moment be lost on you. So be gentle with yourself, and pay attention, because everything is getting shifted around. And your writing will reflect that if you stay present and you try to, not force yourself, oh, now I'm in quarantine, I have all this time, I should be producing. That mentality is part of what got us into trouble with climate change and et cetera, of always having to drive ourselves. So, this is a time when we can all hit pause and learn. And the writing can be a way to understand it and make meaning of it for yourself, and hopefully sustain you and others going forward.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm going to ask Carlos if Julia, if you can stay with us for just one more minute. I want to thank people. So I want to put up a couple of slides, and maybe actually, Carlos, if you could back up to some of the quick thank you slides, although this is the one I do want to show. A couple earlier.
There you go.
I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to thank the folks who've joined us today. And then if you can click forward to the next message. And these are the members of the foundation who have worked hard to put this event together. So I just wanted to nod to my colleagues who put quite a bit of effort into this as well. And then to the next slide. I'd also like to thank, oh, sorry, maybe it's backing up instead. I might be going in the wrong sequence. The one showing the 2 book covers. Okay, so what's so wonderful about this is that even though the tours don't really look like book tours today, we were able to partner with the Vermont Bookshop. And I guarantee, I don't think anyone else can say this, you can actually have an autographed copy of the books that you've heard the author talk about this evening by making a small donation to the Yonkers Public Library, to the foundation. If you click on the next slide going forward, sorry, one last time showing the Vermont Bookshop, you can find all the information on the foundation website, foundation4ypl.org. And we want to thank the Vermont Bookshop for making this possible. They literally will receive the books. We're not divulging any addresses, but apparently they know where the author lives and they will make it easy for her to sign the books. So we hope you'll consider a donation, and they think it will take between 3 and 4 weeks to get them to you. But we're thrilled that she's game to do this and super thrilled that they're happy to partner with us. So if we unshare the screen again, so Julia can be a full screen one last time with us. I wanted to thank you on behalf of everyone here and ask if you had any final I don't know, final benediction, final things for us to think about before we sign off for the night. But I'll tell you again, it's been such a pleasure to meet you and to hear about your writing and about your thoughts.
Well, I want to thank all of you. What an amazing staff. I mean, Jessie is right. Everybody, and Dr. Quesada coming the extra mile and hearing me twice. I'm so touched by this welcome. I don't know, the Vermont Bookshop, I talked about libraries and endangered institutions that we have to keep from going extinct by supporting them. And our little independent bookstore is wonderful. And so I've been urging everybody to buy from them. That my husband has got a lung disease, so we have had to be in total quarantine. And Becky, the owner, comes and we have a bench for her in the garage, and she puts the books there with little Post-its, and they quarantine for the night, and then in the morning I go sign. So there's a little story behind this. I don't know what kind of time you have, but I would love to read my love poem to librarians. Is there time, Nancy?
Of course there's time.
Okay. This is the title of this poem is called Why I Am in Love with Librarians. And it's a little dated, but not for those of us probably who are here, but for kids, because this is the time when there was a card catalog and there was a reference librarian. Instead of, you went on the internet or search engines, this is how you got the information you needed. And as a writer, I depended and still do on my librarians. So I wrote this love poem to one of the librarians here that most helped me, but it's really to all librarians. As I said, if I hadn't found the library, the New York Public Library, as a 10-year-old when we came to this country, I would not have had access to so many wonderful books. So why I am in love with librarians. I love how they know things only to pass them on, how they fade into the faux wood paneled walls of the reference room, their faces hidden between the covers of books, how they look up only to help you. What is the capital of Afghanistan? How do the Maori bury their dead? Who invented Barbie? How many were murdered in Guatemala in '84? Every query worthy of their attention, any questioner taken seriously, curiosity the only requirement. I love how they listen, their lined faces opening, their eyes already elsewhere, scanning a plane for the lights of a distant city, hunting for bodies in the highlands, searching the web for Barbie. Their minds like those flocks of little birds in winter, swooping over a landscape, looking. And always, when they get back to you, that sweet smile on their faces, pride and deep affection for what can be known, as if Barbie's invention or the tally of the massacre could save you, could save the world. And who knows, if Stalin or Hitler had spent their youth in the library, history might be rewritten, recatalogued by librarians. Curiosity sends us out to a world both larger and smaller than what we know and believe in, with a passion for finding an answer, or at least understanding our questions. That road is paved with librarians, bushwhackers, scouts with string through the labyrinths of information, helpers who disappear the moment you reach your destination. So thank you, librarians. This is my love poem to you.
That was beautiful. And thank you so much. I wish you could hear everyone applauding. I have a feeling there'd be a second ovation of the night if you could see us all here.
You're the ones that deserve it.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Have a good night and stay safe, and let's take care of each other.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.
Okay, gracias. Gracias, bye.
Good night, everyone. Be well.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Nancy.